Support for this podcast comes from Bed of Nails, a modern, ergonomically designed version of the ancient technology. Bed of Nails acupressure products bring the self-healing benefits of treatments such as acupuncture and massage to your home or workplace to help you sustain a healthy lifestyle amid the stresses of our modern world. Visit humanamplified.com/episodes/091 to receive a 15% discount and a link to shop Bed of Nails. I'm your host, Brandy Fleck, and this is Human Amplified. We're on a mission to revamp society by amplifying your humanity. This week on the show,
I am Rebecca Hulse. I'm from Christchurch, New Zealand. You need to start by knowing what's actually important to you. We live in a universe that actually has a wealth of choices, but we're taught to only look for binary choices. Relaxation is knowing that you can be everything for yourself, and then you can receive it from others as an added bonus. Those highs and lows and the different nuances of what you can experience is, to me, the gift of being alive.
Have you ever felt like traditional spiritual practices just aren't helping you find peace? Are you hard on yourself because it feels impossible to do all the right things like shop green, do yoga, drink enough water, and the list goes on? Or does being told what to do by supposed authority figures make you want to do the opposite of what you should do? Just that much more? And I say should with air quotes. What about that list of people in your life who said you couldn't or shouldn't do something that you truly believe you were meant to do? I have a proverbial list like that, and today's guest, Rebecca Hulse, definitely does. Rebecca is a New Zealand-based professional dancer turned author, speaker, and creative business coach. She's all about embracing your inner rebel as fuel to move forward in a way that works for you. Once she started doing this in her own life, she says she ended up being 10 years ahead of schedule in terms of achieving her dreams, and she had to answer the question, now what? Well, that's possible for you too. I just love how personal Rebecca gets on today's episode. By the end of the interview, she creates a space for you to truly let go of anything bothering you from the day and gives you actionable steps for how to move forward after that. Essentially, from this episode, you'll be inspired and empowered to live on your own terms, strengthen your peace, listen to your body and own knowing, and to make space in your day for creativity. How awesome is that? For all the links mentioned throughout this episode, visit the show notes at humanamplified.com/episodes/091. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here. Just how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I've been on a lot of different sessions this morning, and so I'm definitely in a talking mood. I'm on my second coffee here in the morning in New Zealand, and yeah, I'm ready to chat.
Great. Well, let's just dive in. Rebecca, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell them who you are, what you do.
Sure. I'm Rebecca Hulse. I describe myself as a creative rebel at heart. If I had to give my job description, that would be a business and creativity coach. And I am a writer that recently came out with a new book, my latest soul expression, which is Rebellious Rituals. And I'm excited that it's finally out in the world and ready to get into people's hands.
Awesome. Well, that all sounds just amazing. And I would love to dive into rebel and how you're a self-described rebel, and what does being a rebel mean for you?
It's a good question. And it's something I had to claim. Otherwise, it was going to claim me. And I think many people can relate to the experience of having that innate desire to say, screw you, when someone tells you what to do or recommend something. And it really doesn't matter how good the advice is. You still need to do things in your own way.
Mm.
And that's how I realized I was like, all right, you have a pretty strong rebellious streak. You're going to have to learn to work with that before it destroys you.
Okay.
And so that's where, I use it in things like my bio and how I describe myself, and recognize when those streaks come up, that rebellious energy comes up, so that I can make sure that I'm not reacting. I'm actually actively choosing for what I desire.
Okay. This is really interesting. So, at some point, did it sort of start to destroy you and you had to make changes, or how did it manifest in your life?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, I've definitely used it for creating my life a lot of the time. So, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a professional dancer. And I got told with my partner at the time that, oh, like you guys are never going to be able to get into the same company, let alone on the same ship where we wanted to dance. Like it's never going to happen. You're just going to have to accept the reality. And we said instead, watch us. And we used that as fuel to create what we wanted. And we did. We ended up not only in the same company, but on the same ship, doing and living our dream. And I've noticed time and time again that when you use not necessarily like outside criticism, I guess you could say, or outside disbelief is more, external disbelief is more, I guess, what I've used. I've been able to channel that into creating what I want. I've also seen times where I've spent too much money or I've tried to prove someone that I am something in a certain way that they approve of. And that's always just taken far more energy than it's worth. And especially lately, I've definitely dropped a lot of that. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that we haven't seen in a while. And I was talking to a friend yesterday and I said, there's some people that when I see them again and they want to give me a hug, I'm just going to say no.
Okay.
Like they're like I am. Like I'm going to be slightly socially awkward and they're going to be like, oh my God, Rebecca. And I'm going to be like, no, I'm sorry. But I just know that I'm just not interested in being in their world or having their touch, especially. And I realized that this is also really what it means to live rebelliously and to use these innate, instincts that we have to propel us forward and to create what we want in our own lives, is to be able to say no to the things that we actually don't want, even if it would make someone else feel better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. How do you see that going? Like when you say no, what do you think these people will do?
I think they'll be shocked, especially because I can be quite like a gracious person.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to have a reaction on their side, but I also now realize that that's on them. That's not on me.
Okay. Do you think you'll still maintain relationships with people after you have really claimed what you want?
Well, we haven't maintained the relationships now. Like they're kind of just, they're people that are within my friends circle that are not active components. Like they're not people that I've actively stayed in touch with in particular.
Yeah.
But I have a really worldwide network. So I'm certain that I will see them again.
Okay.
I just know that they're not big markers in my life anymore. So
Okay.
they're gonna get a no.
Gotcha. Okay. And it takes a lot of strength and I think self-awareness to be able to do what you've just described. So, gosh, there's so much to unpack here. And I definitely,
There really is.
yeah. I want to get into your dancing a little bit and creativity, but I'm going to hold off on that for a little bit later. And first, I want to follow up to you using that fuel of them saying, no, you can't, and saying, well, watch me. That resonates with me so loudly because, well, growing up, and a lot of my listeners know that I'm an abuse survivor. And so growing up, there were people in my life who were always like, oh, you're never going to do that. You're never going to amount to this. You're not, and I did the same thing. I was always like, watch me. I will do what I want. And,
Yeah.
but it's funny because that doesn't necessarily fuel me anymore, but I know that I'm where I'm at today because there was that fuel at one point in time.
Yeah.
So
I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
That you've picked up on there. I'm not sure where you wanted to lead the conversation, but I also just want to highlight that you can have that external, but you don't need it. That choice does actually come from within you anyway.
Yes. And I love that you said that because this is the perfect transition into how would you advise someone to embrace living rebelliously on their own terms?
All right. Well, you need to start by knowing what's actually important to you. And it can be hard to know what we want because of a few things. The first is that we live in a universe that actually has a wealth of choices, but we're taught to only look for binary choices,
Mm,
this or that, one or two. And God forbid that you choose three. Like we've been given it's this huge paradox that can screw with our brains quite a lot where you actually do have far more choices available to you than you think you do. And then you have this training that says just to choose one or two things max. And so learning to actually be willing to look for more than one possibility and to know that there are lots and be okay with it and not go like, oh my God, how am I supposed to choose when there is a lot more?
mm,
To actually go, all right, I have lots of choices. So what is actually going to work with for me here is one part that getting over the idea that you only have binary choices and that you do actually have a lot more available to you. That's one part.
okay.
And then the other part of this is most of us don't know what we want and therefore have to start exploring what we don't want.
Mm,
And this is great for the rebel because whatever gets you mad, whatever gets you irritated or annoyed is fuel and a great signal that you know that there's something better.
mm,
I will often use these areas where I get really irritated and then ask myself, what do I know that's better than this? And then I'll go for that. So I can understand that it's really hard for us to sometimes know what we want. But if we have these two tools, the one is knowing that there's always more choices available than you've considered, and that it's okay to explore what you don't want in order to find what you do want,
mm.
then you start to realize how you can actually propel yourself into your choices by using that rebellious streak, finding what you actually do want, and then being willing to make a choice.
Yeah, that's a lot of tangible advice that I definitely want our listeners to take away.
That's what hopefully what you're gonna get out of this because I mean one of my pet hates and the things that I feel is like I hate either advice that has to disempower someone before it empowers them,
Mm,
where you like stir up people's shit before so that they feel vulnerable and manipulated in order to do what you want them to do,
yeah.
or things that you listen to that waste your time because you couldn't do any of the things that they talked about.
Yes.
Those are like two of my pet hates that I have used for fuel into how I speak and how I work and what I offer.
Awesome.
I hope that we're walking my talk in this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go into what's your book about. So, you have a book called Rebellious Rituals that you mentioned. Just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Rebellious Rituals is my rendition of a bad joke turned good. I like to say that it's like a sketch pad, a self-care guide, and what else did I say? A rebel, me, walked into a bar and we sat down and we wrote this. So it's designed is the guide that is not, it's fluffy, but not fluffy. It's got enough magic and woo that you feel like you've experienced something transformational, but it's also practical enough that you can use it when you have something real happen in your life. And all of these rituals are channeled through experiences and things that I wanted to change in my own life that I didn't necessarily felt like I had a tool at the time to do it. One of the things that I talk about early on in the book and that propelled me into creating this was back when I was a dancer and I was trying to improve myself a lot of the time and like be a bit of a seeker. I was looking for all of these spiritual tools to help me deal with the massive levels of anxiety and perfectionism that I was dealing with.
Mm,
And so I was trying to learn how to meditate and to keep myself calm. And I had a lot of anger and frustration and this perfect vision that I couldn't achieve and was always comparing myself to. And so it's like I would get up in the morning and I would meditate and I would create my fragile bubble of peace. And then I would come downstairs and I would just see the smallest thing that was wrong. I would see a dishwasher that wasn't unloaded, a juicer that hadn't been cleaned, something that hadn't been put away from the night before, something annoying that my boyfriend had done. and it would shatter this piece. And I would march myself back upstairs to meditate again to try and get myself calm. And then I would go downstairs and something else would happen. And I was like, I didn't really ever get any peace. The only thing I got was a decent ass from climbing our stairs up and down all the time. And I was like, there's got to be like something that's a bit more natural than this. And I finally realized that maybe I wasn't necessarily the issue, but the tools I had just weren't the right tools for me.
Mm.
And that was such a moment of relief to know that I wasn't the thing that was screwed up. I just wasn't using the right tools for me.
Gotcha.
And that's really why I wanted to offer this book in the world and just offer something different in the space of self-care that doesn't require like a day spa or, lots of time, because we're all so busy and doing so many things. And it's like, do you need to spend an hour doing yoga every morning and fresh press your juice and, make sure that you went to a local greengrocer? Or is it okay that you ordered stuff online from the supermarket?
Yeah.
Like a little bit more forgiving measures
Yeah.
is what I think is needed. So that is what this book is an homage to, into having a bit of change and self-care quickly.
Okay. I really love how you phrased the fragile bubble of peace. Can you just expand on that a little bit? Like, well, you said you meditated and some things like that, but they just weren't working for you. So how did you get a non-fragile bubble?
Well, I mean, it helps that I was seeking and I was asking. And I do believe that the universe is throwing things in our path all the time that we're asking for, that we're willing to receive.
Okay.
And so for me, it's like I've grown up as a bit of a personal development junkie kid. I'm that weird girl that was homeschooled by parents that were spiritual. So, I've been taught how to goal set and how to manifest and to meditate in a few different energy works like that. So it was in my vocabulary, but it wasn't necessarily that effective. And so I was starting to search for my own tools, and I came across the tools of access consciousness, which said that they were about empowering people to know that they know. And they seemed really irreverent and real. And to my spiritual hippie high strung ass in the time, I was like, you can't drink Coke, and how dare you have water with chemicals in it? And you swore, and none of this makes sense. Like I was very critical of all of the tools, but they were really simple. And I started using them. And a lot of them are actually what propelled me and my partner into the dream dance job too. Like I started using those tools of asking questions and clearing and destroying and uncreating the limitations. And actually within a month of discovering these tools, I had the dream dance job that I wanted. And I was like, I think this shit is working. I don't know if you can swear. I don't know if you can swear on your show, but I'm trying not to.
You can, as much as you want to.
All right, good. I will just say a warning for people now. My book does swear.
Okay.
A lot, which is bizarre because it's actually approved to be in some of the schools in New Zealand. And I just don't know how or why they let that, but they have. So,
well, that's good. It's probably a very helpful book.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned self-care, and I feel like we hear the phrase self-care a lot. Why do you think there is such a need for it, and how does it relate to what you do with helping entrepreneurs?
That's a lot to unpack. So first thing is, I believe that we truly do need to be self-sufficient in order to be able to contribute to others fully.
Okay.
So for me, this is really an homage to being what you crave. And I use that language specifically because we all have these cravings, these needs for things that we actually need to be met in order to thrive as a human being. And if we're relying on external sources for those, they can easily be taken away. They're very volatile. And I don't think our personal strength and our ability to take care of ourselves should rely on something that's volatile. I think that if you're craving the energy of support and a hug, you should be able to wrap your arms around yourself and feel your own embrace and know that you're going to be okay. I believe that if you need to have more touch in your life, you should be able to enjoy and embrace your body enough that touching yourself actually provides that sensation that your body is looking for. And you value your body enough to be able to do that.
Okay.
And so this is truly what self-care comes from to me. It's not necessarily, there's boring self-care that is very important, like getting the kind of sleep that your body needs and brushing your teeth and going to the supermarket so you have decent food that your body likes to eat and having a shower. Like there is boring self-care and that's so needed. I love that those conversations have started now. And then there's an internal self-care that often gets missed because we'll go more to the glamorous side of things, like day spas, and I have a big bathtub, and like I sat down or I went out on a date by myself. And that kind of self-care, while it's glorious, is expensive. And it's not accessible to everyone. It's what I call white girl self-care. Like it's entitled. Whereas like this is actually starting to look a lot deeper into what is it that I need in order to thrive? And what if I could be that for myself?
Okay.
Because then when someone else comes into your life and can be something that you crave or you need, you're grateful for it. You don't have this needy need to like grab onto it or suck onto it anymore. Maybe that's the wrong word, but you get the energy of it.
Yeah.
That it has this desperation to it. And then when it goes away, you're screwed. Whereas if you can be it for yourself and then someone else is also willing to give that to you too, there is this sense of gratitude and generosity of spirit and relaxation that can be really precious in relationships. And it's not seen that much in our relationships anymore. Like, do you truly have friends and family and loved ones around you that you can relax with?
Yeah.
And I think the relaxation is knowing that you can be everything for yourself and then you can receive it from others as an added bonus.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't want to see self-sufficiency as a way of, I don't need everyone, I'm fine. That's not the energy we're going for here. It's, yes, I am absolutely fine on my own and I can be everything for myself. And I value the wonderful humans around me for what they can contribute to me.
Thank you for that explanation. Listeners, we're talking to Rebecca Hulse, creative business coach, speaker, and author of her latest book, Rebellious Rituals. It's time for a quick break. I'm your host, Brandy Fleck, and this is Human Amplified. Is traditional meditation not working for you? Same. Just like Rebecca, meditation is one self-care ritual I've struggled with over the years. You feel this too sometimes. You have highs, sometimes you have lows. Either way, you keep trying to use it to quiet your mind and to get peace and perspective, to get the messages from your higher power or higher self or even your body that are meant for you. When you do find what works for you, meditation is a powerful way to expand your consciousness. It helps you live in the here and now. Mastering meditation definitely takes practice. So if you're having trouble, experiment with different postures, locations, and tools. You don't actually have to sit in a lotus position with your hands on your knees and eyes closed. You can meditate sitting or lying down, on the ground, in bed, on the couch, in yoga, in the bath, inside a building, or outside in nature, with or without music or sounds, in light or dark, with people or by yourself. What other ways can you think of to try? Just ensure you're comfortable and free of distractions. My absolute favorite way to meditate is to have singing bowls playing lightly in the background and lying down flat on my bed of nails acupressure mat. To try Bed of Nails in your new or rekindled meditation practice, go to the show notes of this episode at humanamplified.com/episodes/091 to get a link to shop and a discount code for 15% off. Now, back to the show. We're talking to creative business coach, speaker, and author Rebecca Hulse. Her latest book is called Rebellious Rituals. You've mentioned being a dancer a couple of times since we've started this talk, so let's go into that for a little bit. First of all, could you just tell us a story? You said you made it and you were doing what you wanted to do. What was it like?
Well, It's interesting because you have this dream of, or this vision of what you think a dancer's life is going to be like. You're on stage and you get applause. And when you're on a cruise ship, you're traveling to these amazing locations. And it sounds idyllic. But for an empathetic person who's quite energetically aware, I was also a person living on a ship, which is like a tin can reverberation of people that thought that they could escape their lives and their problems, and realized about 3 hours into the cruise that everything that they thought they'd left behind had come with them.
Gotcha.
And that is quite the experience.
Sounds intense.
It is intense. And, and then you have different crew dynamics as well. And, you hope that your crew, your dance team is, a team. And sometimes it is, but, everyone does have their own lives and agendas. So there is often a lot of different play behind the scenes. And then your own insecurities that also didn't leave when you left land, like they came with you too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this experience of thinking that you've left so much behind, but really you've left nothing behind. And now you're in a space where you're perhaps a little bit more isolated or quiet, and those demons come to visit.
Okay.
I had realized that I had achieved, like, I had this bucket list that I was like, all right, this will take me until I'm 30. And it was like to meet a great person, like to spend my life with, and to be a professional dancer, and to travel the world, and to start a business helping people. And I realized one day as I'm on this cruise ship and, I'm stressing out a little bit, and my anxiety is still pretty high up on the list. Like I never really felt like I was safe, or like I had everything going for me.
Okay.
But I realized as I'm looking there, and I was like, well, hang on, Rebecca, you've just done a lot of your things. Like you are on a ship, you're traveling the world right now, you're getting paid to dance, you're doing a show tonight, you just started your coaching business, and you have a great support person here. You have your partner. And I was like, well, crap, what am I going to do for the next 10 years? And that's when I realized that this dance goal wasn't really something that I desired to do for a long period of time anymore. And I was like, well, now what do I do? And that's when the universe kind of stepped in and they was like, don't worry, we've got you, and kind of threw me into the world of personal development. And I started working a lot with access consciousness and exploring creating businesses on an international level.
Okay.
But it was definitely this moment of, I'm 10 years ahead of schedule. What the hell am I going to do for the next 10 years?
Yeah. Okay. So do you still dance at all, or are you just like doing coaching now?
I don't dance professionally at all anymore. I continued that freelance for probably another 4 years. But by then, the perfectionist toll and some of the unhealthy body image things started to catch up with me. And I used a lot of the access consciousness tools to heal that and to create a relationship with my body where I look at it in the mirror and I now no longer pick it to bit and actually adore it for the shape that it is.
Yeah.
That was huge revelation for me.
Yeah.
And I created a ritual in the book based on that called Body Needs Love, which I think is a really great homage to the TLC that our body actually needs from us, not necessarily from other people.
Yeah. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what some of the body image issues were that you healed from?
Sure. So for me, you have this spiritual empath energetic side. So that means I'm constantly receiving and aware of everything that's going on for not only me, but everyone around me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw that into a room of teenage girls going through huge changes with their bodies, staring at a mirror every day for 6 to 8 hours a day. There is a lot of critique. There's a lot of body image. And I'm fortunate that I never did as much drastic measures as I have seen some of my friends and other dancers go through in terms of anorexia and bulimia. Like I never went that far, but I definitely restricted myself. I definitely thought that I was the fattest dancer in the room. And I look back at myself now and I'm like, holy shit, I was skinny. And I had no clue. And it's really this body dysmorphia that occurs between what you see in the mirror and what is actually what's going on with your body. And so for me, it was about learning to see my body as it is, understand what it wanted to look like. Is like our bodies actually have their own consciousness and their own, desire and their own ways of communicating. And most of the time we're not listening.
Mm.
And so for me, it was actually more of a conversation of how to listen to my body and understand what it wanted. How does it like to move, to sleep, to eat, to take care of itself, to enjoy things that bodies do, things like sex, things like movement, exercise, stretching, things like that.
Yeah.
And it was like a reintroduction to being alive on the planet, is how I would describe it. But it was something that I'm so grateful I did. And then I went and I pushed myself by traveling around the world nonstop. And my body was like, okay, this is a new form of hard. And it was fabulous throughout all of it. But then when I came home in 2020, it was exhausted and I slept for like 6 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so how do you listen to your body?
I talk to it like the crazy person I am most of the time in my head. So other people don't know how crazy I am. But I do. I was like, hey, buddy, like when you wake up in the morning, it's like me as the being. I've probably been off doing crazy shit and dreaming, but my body's been in bed sleeping. So
Mhm.
I'll always ask my body, it's like, hey, body, how are you this morning? And it's like, I'm fine. I don't know what you were doing, but I had a great night's sleep. I was like, all right, cool. And we get up from there. And then I'll ask her, I was like, all right, body, do you want to do some yoga? If so, like, what kind of yoga video do you want to do? And I let it dictate everything. Like, what kind of clothes do you want to wear today? Do you want to wash your hair today or not? Because it's long and it takes forever.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to eat this morning? Tell me when you're hungry. Tell me when we need to move or have a break. Like anything that's to do with my body, I ask it.
Okay. And then how do you get the answer?
Well, it's taken time. It's taken time. So now I can ask and just get a bit of a sense, whether it's a picture or a thought in my head or like a bit of a craving. But when I started, I had to use this tool in access consciousness that's called light or heavy. And basically, the premise of this tool is whatever is true for you will feel lighter. Whatever is a lie for you will make you feel heavier and more contracted. You want to follow the lightness.
Okay.
And it sounds simple, but the more you ask for it and the more you practice it, the more you perceive it. So when I first started, the only feeling I could get was with my nose. So it's like if something felt like a bit heavier and stiffer, like kind of like you're wrinkling your nose, I knew that wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
And then when something felt lighter, it felt like I could breathe easier. I was like, all right, cool. And I went with it. And then it kind of spread out to my whole face and then to my shoulders and then to my whole body. And then I could kind of perceive it more energetically outside of me. And by that time, I knew what was light and what was heavy for me. But it started with a really small part of my body. And the more I trusted it, the more it grew.
That's really cool. That's a really helpful description too, because I know a lot of times we talk about these concepts, but it's hard to figure out how it would even apply. So that's very helpful.
Yeah. And I won't say that I didn't have moments of doubt, like, all right, let's just go with it. But I also realized like the more that I chose my intuition's answers, the more strength I got and the more I trusted myself. So it is an exercise in active trust.
Okay.
An act of choosing, but that gift has been priceless to me. And I've had to use my intuition more and more over the years and over the more difficult tasks and things that I've done. And if you're willing to try and experiment with it, it really will show you a different way to live.
Yeah.
Especially good if you like overthink things a lot and you're just like, no, I'm going with the first feeling. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. The fact that this is an exercise in active trust, I think sort of subtly brings up the point that sometimes we don't trust ourselves and we don't even know that we don't trust ourselves. So,
well, and we're not exactly empowered to trust ourselves. It's like, do your research, figure out this information. Like, who taught you that? How did you figure that out? Where's your sources? Like, other people are allowed to be experts, but clearly not you, is the subtle message that we're given.
Yeah.
And that sounds so harsh, but unfortunately, it's true of what I've experienced.
Okay.
I'll let each person consider that in their own worlds to see if it's true for them. But for me, it's like, there's nothing more rebellious than listening to your own knowing.
Yeah.
Like in a world that supports, finding out everything you know from someone else, finding out something that you know from you is a rebellious act.
Yeah.
And it's something that excites me. And I think in our fellow rebels, it will incite like a bit of a yes,
Uh-huh.
that is something I want from my life kind of energy.
Yeah.
And it does, it really comes from making your own choices. Now, that doesn't mean that you should refute research or you should not ask questions or explore your avenues. That is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying just refutely only follow your own path with no external resources. But I do think we put too much reliance on external resources over our own knowing time and time again. And that damages that knowing and our trust in it.
Mm. Okay. Is there a connection between creativity and this self-care and this self-trust?
Maybe. So let's explore. Like creativity is innately human.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're making stuff by like making inventions and painting on the walls in caves for 40,000 years more than we were trying to create agriculture. So that kind of
Yeah.
thing that we make before we secure, like, which for me is just such a great reminder. It's like, yeah, like I'm a maker. I'm not someone that's here to make sense and ensure safety and, you know, all those very important things. But, you know, it can be easier to be safe now than it was then.
Yeah.
So let's get back to making stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, I never, even though I've been a dancer and I've painted and I've loved experimenting and making things, it's taken me until being a grown ass adult to embrace being creative.
Okay.
And mainly because that's not considered something that's very valuable. And also because of a fantastic conversation that I had with a friend. And he said, what would you have to be dying or stop breathing in order to stop doing? And I was like, oh, coming up with ideas and making things happen. And he was like, right. So that capacity as a creator is your thing.
Mm.
And it was such a great moment to just go, right, I really would have to be sick or dying in order to stop creating. And for me, creativity as much as my breath and my oxygen as air is. And I've decided to embrace that in my life fully and in my work. And it may be different for someone else. And I will say it has taken a lot of courage for me to say, like, no, it's not all my business expertise or my ability to write or my rebellious streak, and to really like hone in on this is like, this is my home, this land of ideas, like this is my home.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken courage to say it's okay to have something as lighthearted and almost intangible as your main contribution.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time to get there. So it's like if you first ask a question like this and you get something that's a little bit more useful, or you can't embrace something that seems so silly, I just want to say you're not alone. It's a deep part of the process. But eventually, I think we'll let our more frivolous, silly light shine through, because I think we need more of that
Mm-hmm.
more than ever. We need more of the exuberant joy and intangible things over things that you can easily monetize or make sense.
Yes. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. What are some of the intangible benefits of creativity?
I think first you learn that the path is no longer straight. And you have to, if you're going to create things, you have to create trust in yourself and your ability to make something, to bring it to life. Trust in the idea and that it actually wants to be made and that it's ready, it's the right time. And also a trust in the process that all of your side tangents and the people you talk to, or how you get distracted, or when you leave something and come back to it, are natural and a part of it, and not a deviant or something that you did wrong or that detracted, that they're actually just as welcome as all the tangible steps that you took.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, we're taught steps. We're taught like you learn letters and then you learn words and then you learn sentences and then you learn grammar. Like we're taught steps for so many things, but we as people are incredibly nonlinear.
Yeah.
That's why we often struggle with things like rules, and why there's so many different clashes within communities and society, is like we're essentially very nonlinear creations ourselves. And so for some bizarre reason, we think that we need to follow an order in order to be successful. But most of the time, it's a random jumble of choices, hopefully where you've trusted yourself and chosen things based on your intuition and what works for you more than not. And that is actually what ends up creating our success.
Yeah. Well, this is perfect to start talking about inconsistency. And I know that you've said before that inconsistency is the key to creativity, but we always hear this advice that we have to be consistent to be
Ugh,
successful.
yes.
Yeah. And that, do something daily, make it a habit, like make yourself do it. So, how do you reconcile that? What's the difference that you teach there?
Well, I'm now very grateful that I brought up the tool of light and heavy earlier, because it's like when Brandy said that, did anyone feel lighter? Or did everyone feel like, oh my God, yes, heavy? So for me, that simple thing of light or heavy, like be consistent, work harder, do something daily, fills me with dread,
Yeah.
because I know that for the life of me, I cannot do that. I can probably be consistent for 3 days and that's it.
Yeah.
So instead, I try to find ways to live my life that embrace the inconsistency. Now, does that mean that I don't have responsibilities or things that have to be done? Absolutely not. Like there is all things in our life that are very pragmatic that have to be taken care of. And I'm not saying that you should refute those.
Mhm.
But what I am saying is that you should allow some space for your inconsistency, because those highs and lows and the different nuances of what you can experience is, to me, the gift of being alive.
Mhm.
We've never really had the same day twice.
Right.
So why do we suddenly expect ourselves to be the same every day?
Mm.
And to me, that just seems like a crazy expectation that we're incapable of fulfilling. And we should embrace more of that imperfection and, just as I said in the very beginning, more depth.
Yeah. I think society has, like, the way that we've set things up and just gotten into the grind of things has really made a lot of us miss what you just described as the gift of being alive. And I think that healing can start for our society as a whole. We can be happier as a human race if we are experiencing these things that are meant for us in that way. So I love it. I love it. Let's talk about, though, the pragmatic things that you mentioned that we still have to take care of. So if we're leaving space for the inconsistency, how do we make progress on goals? How do we keep moving forward?
Yeah. So one thing that I really love the use of, and I particularly use this with my clients, especially if they have issues with some of the things like dopamine or some of our happy brain drugs in particular, is a way that I love to use this, is create a menu so that at least once a day, you're going to choose something that's going to create something for you, whether it's in the self-care or with your body and your health, or to deepen your relationships, or to do something that you don't necessarily like to do. But to create a menu so it's like you can use your inconsistency and that you don't have to do the same thing every day. You can also get better at making a choice, because there's not just 2 items on the list. Generally, there's 5 to like 7.
Mm.
And so you're getting used to making choices. And then you're also prioritizing you, because you're choosing something that's actually going to create for you. We're bad at remembering the things that we love to do. And so for me, it's like having these reminders of some different choices available strengthens my ability to choose, gives me a sense of prioritizing myself, and will often give me something that I know that I need to do. I love menus for a lot of things for when you are an inconsistent person, because then you never really have to start at the beginning of a step,
Mm.
which I find really difficult. I'm much better at starting in the middle or the end and then like finishing off the other bit.
Yeah.
And that's probably a creativity hack just kind of dropped in there. But things like menus are really good for inconsistency. And for when you do have, certain targets that you want to meet, do a bit of a layout of what's required, but then don't start at the beginning.
Mm.
Let yourself go out of order. And then your brain won't race ahead, which I find makes it really hard for you to complete it. It's like when you've done it in your head, you're done. And that makes it harder to do things again. And so it's like when you can start out of order, you can kind of trick your brain into going along for the ride because it no longer can make sense of it. And then you realize that you've taken far more actions than you normally would.
Yes.
So I guess that's three things. Don't start in order if you've got a particular project or task that you want to accomplish. Create menus of choices to practice choosing and to find different ways to take care of yourself and your body. Choose what's light.
I really like the create a menu tip, and I'm going to try that. And when I am always working on creative projects, I never start at the beginning either. So fellow creatives, this will be amazing for you to try if you're not already doing something like that. And then I wonder if you've already told us some of the rebellious rituals that help in self-care, but if you haven't, can you give us an example?
I'm going to read some of the titles of them, and then I'm going to let you pick. So
Okay.
we have things like morning questions, introverts BFF, cranky, I feel weird, I screwed up, squirrel. There's one for working from home. This one seems to be a favorite. The universe has your back.
Oh.
Things like I don't want to go to work today, or a ray of sunshine, or a screen break. There's one for everything is going to shit. And then there's the one straight after it for everything is going great. Because I don't think that you need to have to fix anything in order to necessarily take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's one for when you need to get motivated or when you want to be a bit more turned on. So yeah, those are some of the things that are available in this book of rituals. There's something sparking.
The two that struck me the loudest were introverts BFF and squirrel.
Okay. I think those can kind of summarize my life. All right. So we're going to page 57 here. Introverts BFF. So this one, I mean, we start with a really great sentence. People can suck it. So this gives you a bit of the tone of the book.
Uh-huh.
It's very much a download from my soul to yours. But what this process in particular does is it gives you permission to not like people, at least for a minute. Because when you're done, and it doesn't really do much good to suppress it, but instead to give yourself the space you need. So I created this as a way that I thought that someone could take this into the bathroom on their phone if they're at a social event, or they could go and sit in their car. Or if you have been in an event and you've managed to escape, you can come home and do this ritual. Or let's say it's like holiday season is coming up. So it's like maybe you're going from party to party. You could do this ritual in between to kind of give yourself a break. So that's kind of what the aim of this is to do. But the first thing, which is just something that all of us could do right now, is just to let go of all the connections to everyone that you've connected to or talked to today. Just let that go. And to also let our barriers down. And that may seem unsafe, but remember, it's just you and me and Brandy here on this podcast. And it's like, if you just let your barriers down for a second, that also lets you out. When you've got your layers of protection up, that also keeps you in. So it's like, just take a moment to be safe and to lower our barriers and to just let ourselves have a bit of breathing room. And then it invites you to bring up the energies of things that have your back. So things like your body literally has your back. I love that as a good corny joke. This beautiful planet that you walk on that provides the air that you breathe and the nutrients that you enjoy, the universe. And then it gives you a moment to reflect on some of the things you personally have in your life that have your back. So that's just a bit of a taste of what happens on the ritual. The ritual then goes on for another page or two. So probably about 5 minutes to enjoy, depending on how long you need to take. You can make it go for slow or as long as you want.
Okay.
But that's just a bit of a sense of what would be in the introverts BFF ritual.
Can you describe for us how to let go of all the connections? Like, how do you even begin to do that?
You begin by asking for a start. So you have to, everything happens with the choice. Choice creates. So it's like you choose to let go of the connections. And then what's really interesting about this particular kind of energy work is it sometimes doesn't have a feeling, and that's perfectly valid. So But first, it's like for any of you that have tried any kind of energy or spiritual work and someone's gone like, did you feel that? And you didn't, that doesn't mean that you didn't do it or it didn't work for you. It just means that sometimes energy doesn't have a sensation. And that's where you can use light and heavy and you can say, is this working? Did I truly let go of everything or not? And you might find that, yeah, you did. And for me, one of the ways that I can sense that I've let go of connections to other people is it just feels a little bit quieter. And you might even be able to tell in the recording that you're listening to that it's just like, it might be a little bit softer, a little bit quieter, a little less white noise in the background kind of vibe. And I've even noticed here, it's like the birds outside, it's springtime here in New Zealand are actually a little bit quieter than they were. So you may not necessarily notice like this big sense of relief. And that is, I think, a really dangerous thing that is done in a lot of metaphysics, is this huge emphasis on feelings that for most of the time, I kind of feel like they're made up. Some people will hate me for that, but oh wow. But it's more about like getting really present with what you notice and not needing to necessarily have a lot of external proof for just making a choice.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you.
Squirrel. Because we all have a squirrel brain, let's face it.
Yeah.
So it starts with like, wait, what was that? Your idea leaving the station without you? I was like, yeah. This is a ritual where I promise no seriousness. And it's very much just a lighthearted thing of like, it's okay if your ideas leave the station or your thoughts leave the station without you. It's like, it's okay that you're sometimes a bit scattered and unfocused. Like, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. And here's how you can enjoy it. So this sounds counterintuitive, but I actually ask you to ramp up the level of chaos in this ritual. Because again, that suppression, it doesn't work. It doesn't help. It just means that you're going to have to deal with it later. So instead of trying to focus, let's like embrace the chaos of our current frame of mind and ramp it up and try and like relax into it. And so we use something in Access that is called the clearing statement. And I won't go into it on this because I'm not sure that we have time for it, but it is explained in the book and on the Access Consciousness website. And we use that to destroy and uncreate energetic. It's kind of like a quick shortcut to using just a verbal statement to clear energy easily.
Okay.
One of the questions that is really great that I do want everyone to have, especially if they're having a moment of squirrel brain, is we say, what are you actually aware of that you haven't acknowledged that you're aware of? Because often when there's some squirrel brain stuff going on, it's really actually a call out to go, all right, there's a lot of things that I'm aware of right now. Let's like take a minute to like sift through them, to write them down, to get them out of your brain onto paper is a really great way just to sift through your thoughts a little bit more and realize that maybe there's something that's been pinging you that you haven't been paying attention to. And it could be something simple like, I left the sprinklers on, or it could be a little bit, more of a thing is like, hey, I really need to get started on this project now. Otherwise, it's not going to start itself.
Yeah.
So it's another very non-linear call out for that there's a lot of things that you're aware of and you haven't given yourself the space to look at it yet.
Gotcha.
And because of that, we create this little page in the book at the end of the ritual called My Awareness List that you'll be able to trash, hopefully, is the idea.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So it's sort of like a little workbook even.
Yeah.
And you can use it over and over.
That's the idea.
Well, Rebecca, this has been wonderful. Where can people find you, your latest book, and even all your other work?
They can find me at RebeccaHulse.com and on Instagram and Facebook. Those are the places where I'm hanging out. And I'd love to meet you guys. Like, this has been such a fun interview for me, Brandy. Thank you so much. So it's like, if I can contribute more to the people that are listening, like, please reach out because we have to find our tribe, of weird, wild, inconsistent rebels. There has to be a space that is cathartic enough for us to say, screw you to the things that don't work and to fully embrace what does.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been very enjoyable for me too. And hopefully we'll keep in touch and talk again soon.
Yes, I hope so. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brandy.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and learn more at humanamplified.com. Support for this podcast comes from Bed of Nails. Visit humanamplified.com/episodes/091 to get your discount and a link to purchase your Bed of Nails acupressure products.